Much like a lot of the kids that grew up in the 90s, I was extremely fascinated with wrestling, specifically WWE wrestling. Not quite sports and not quite entertainment. It was a hodgepodge with villains known as heels and good guys being baby faces. I'm not sure if it was a youthful desire for cosplay or something to the storylines, but I still can't pinpoint why I was so fascinated with wrestling. But one of the things I find most intriguing is how some of my favorite wrestlers from back in the day have recently came to place their faith in Jesus. From San Diego's very own Rey Mysterio to my favorite wrestler of all time, Shawn Michaels, and most recently, the man from the dark side himself, the Undertaker, who was by far one of the spookiest wrestlers I'd ever seen as a kid. In hindsight, I don't know how they allowed some of this stuff on television. But in this video, we'll be looking at the Undertaker's profession of faith in Jesus and the shocking reason that led to him getting saved.
Ruslan.
All right, guys, we're gonna jump right in. Here is Mark Calloway, AKA The Undertaker, sharing his testimony on how he became a Christian. And it's a rather interesting story here that the way this came about kind of surprised me a bit, if you will. So make sure you guys watch until the end. And if you guys could smash that like button real quick, that helps us out a ton. Let's jump right in. Here we go.
You know, because of what you do. And, you know, I lived a pretty excessive lifestyle. And I didn't have a, you know, I believe in God, but I wasn't living my life for God.
Yes.
And somehow or another, I met the, I even actually get a little choked up.
Wow.
She's awesome. I love you too. Thank you. I needed that. I needed that save right there. I was about to lose my whole character. Thank you.
It's so weird to see him in this light because I'm so used to seeing him in this very spooky, serious type of element. And so to hear him like on a church platform sharing his testimony is so bizarre to me.
But
so he's at a church in Dallas, I believe.
let me back up a little bit. So my wife actually worked with WWE too. Her wrestling name is Michelle McCool. So when she got there was two people that she didn't want to meet. Kane and yours truly. Terrified. Did not.
I mean, they were definitely the two spookiest characters. Him and his you know, character brother. I mean, him and Kane, his character brother, for sure.
Anything to do with me. And it was funny because she has this unbelievable work ethic, you know, and I always told guys, you don't date people that you work with. This is not going to work. I said it for years, and then I broke my own motto. But anyway, so it's
interesting that the way his faith journey began was right inside of his own element of wrestling with someone who was also a coworker that he pledged to never date, ended up dating her, and this is the beginning path of his testimony. I find that very interesting. I think there's some stuff there in terms of how we could potentially be positioned in certain environments that maybe some people would think are absolutely unlikely for someone to come to faith, but God could position people strategically there so that they could share the gospel and maybe even bring someone to Jesus.
I ended up getting to know her, and you know, I was just like, wow, she's really passionate about this, and you could tell that she was genuinely, this is what she was wanting to do. It wasn't a stair step to Hollywood or anything else. This is her, you know, she was passionate.
And from my understanding, Michelle McCool, I think that's how you say her last name, has an incredible reputation, a lot of influence, or had a lot of influence. I'm sure she still does back then. And just a lot of good things said about her. So it's interesting that, you know, again, this is the pathway that God used to reach him.
So, you know, finally, you know, after a long time of her chasing me around, I was like, not true at all. Finally, I you know.
It's always a girl, guys.
You realized that I was not Satan. And, so we ended up, you know, we ended up dating, and eventually she was living in Florida, and then she comes to Austin, and she started going to Lake Hills first. And I was like, okay, go, you know, I'll be here when you get home. Just, you know, go ahead and do your thing. So she says, would you please just come to church with me one time? I'm like, babe, look, I'm gonna walk in there, and the rafters are gonna start shaking, and I mean, you know, I believe in God. I'm good. Just, I don't want to, you know, it's not good.
So you say she started going to Lake Hills Church first. I wonder where she was at in terms of just for her own faith journey. I'd love to hear her testimony because it sounded kind of like she was already kind of a Christian at this point, but I'm not sure. So I'm very curious if this is her not a Christian when she influenced him, or if this was they get married and then she becomes a Christian. That would be an interesting point that I would love to get more details on.
Work. But she, you know, she was very persistent, and she wanted, you know, she wanted me to be the man that I could be, and that has nothing to do with being the Undertaker.
That's right.
And so I went, and it was just the perfect circumstance at the perfect time. She pushed me, and I went reluctantly. But once I got there, and you know, I grew up Catholic, and you know, so I'm thinking to myself, man, I don't want to kneel, I don't want to get down on the pew. I mean, after 17 surgeries, you can figure my body doesn't really feel good all the time. So I'm like, so there were no pews, there were no, you know, I didn't know there was no kneeling and everything. And I just had this. Once again, it was kind of like the Eggman deal. Like I was getting myself worked up, right?
Yeah.
Because I was thinking, okay, all right,
Guys, if you're watching this and you're not a Christian, you don't go to church, when someone invites you to church and you see the transformation in their life, meaning they're the real deal, just go. Most often than not, you will be pleasantly surprised how different it is in your mind versus the experience. And most people, even people that aren't followers of Jesus, aren't Christians, will acknowledge that usually church goes way better than you initially thought in the story you made out in your head. Take it from the Undertaker, all right? Go to church if somebody invites you.
going to see me, and he is just going to throw fire and brimstone right at me. Boom, sinner, you know. And it wasn't nothing like that. Mac and Julie and his family, they were really awesome. And it was more like a conversation, you know. And I found myself from being, you know, kind of tense and pensive to kind of leaning in, like, wow, this is pretty cool. This is wow. And that started my journey.
Yes.
Back to leading my life the way I should.
Yes.
And
isn't that great?
Thank you. Michelle, and I can't wait for you to meet her one day. She is a very strong woman, and she had to be. And she's the one that put me in the right place for me to get my life back on track again to what really matters. And obviously I'm forever indebted just for that. And not even counting how, she's an awesome mom, and, she actually just did her mobile loaves and fish training. So she's awesome. She brings the best out of me.
One time for his wife, man. That's awesome.
You were telling me too when we've talked, it's so interesting and just to hear what an amazing testimony of someone bringing you to church, of course, someone you love so much. And then I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I believe you were telling me like how you knew about God, but then that personal relationship, that was that trigger.
Yeah, absolutely. That was, I wouldn't have been able to give you, I wouldn't be able to recite any kind of scripture whatsoever that first day. Yes, I knew there was, like I said, I was raised Catholic in a God-fearing home, but I just, all my brothers had to go to Catholic school and, taught by the nuns and their hands popped with the rulers and all that. I still hear it when I go home all the time about how rough they had it. But it was the start of me and my journey.
Yes.
And realizing that there was a whole nother part to life that I was missing out on. And I'm not perfect.
Nor am I.
No one's perfect.
No one here
is
perfect, Mark.
No, I get that. I mean, I'm still, I'm still in my process.
Yes.
I'm getting there, but I spend, I spend a lot more time these days reading my Bible and
Excellent.
Here's what I found interesting, and I actually heard him echo some of this, not maybe as overtly, but on his Joe Rogan podcast, believe it or not. And so I think this is the macro idea I want you guys to take away from this. Listen, most people are like how Mark was at that time. Most people believe there is a God. Most people would even acknowledge that the Bible is authoritative to some extent. Most people aren't as anti-Christian as we tend to make them out to be in our head. They may have issues with church. They may have issues with religion. They may have issues with the politics of it. They may have issues with institutions. But most people are theists. The issue is they aren't followers of Jesus. They haven't surrendered their life to the Lord. And so I hope this video encourages you that those people in your life who you would never think in a million years would come to church are much closer than you think they are in terms of surrendering their life to the Lord. And so let this serve as an encouragement to step out, take some risk, invite someone to church with you. Hopefully you're plugged into a church. If you're not, you should be, right? Because oftentimes we make this a bigger deal, and obviously he made it a bigger deal to even go to church. But I think sometimes when we would just step out, when we would take some risk, when we would share our faith, share our testimony, invite someone to come along to church with us, man, God can do some incredible things to some absolutely unexpected people. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and let me know what you guys think about this in terms of the Undertaker giving his life to Jesus. I found this extremely refreshing. And again, if you guys haven't seen some of his stuff on Rogan, he's talked about his faith a little bit there. And I'm excited to see where this journey takes him. Hey guys, I'm Ruslan from the future. Christians stopped influencing culture and all got exiled to a tropical island. Help me in the effort to influence culture with contextualizing the gospel through faith-based media, and sign up for our Patreon for only $5 a month and get me out of this place. All right, you get exclusive access to podcasts, daily after party streams, access to our Discord, and so much more. Please, I'll see you over there.